WWE NXT here at the Havert L Fenn Center in Fort Pierce, one of the regular stops. And right here, I have one of the top talents in the women's division here. It's Ember Moon. Ember Moon, thank you so much. All right, Ember, you got to explain to me the name Ember Moon. Where did the name come from? I know does it have something to do with Sailor Moon?
Not really.
Okay.
I do love Sailor Moon though. I'm a huge fan of anime. But Ember Moon basically comes from, ember is the last thing that dies in a fire, and it takes a huge amount to basically get rid of that. So, and at any time it can combust and come back to life, stronger and faster than ever. Moon, basically for me, the moon to me is ever changing. It has different phases. You see blood moon, blue moon, all sorts of different things like that.
Half moon, quarter moon, full moon.
But it's constantly changing. So Ember Moon to me means someone that's unpredictable, that constantly changes, and has a lot of passion and fire and won't die.
And that is you.
Yeah, that is me.
Ember, when you were growing up, you're from the Texas area?
Yes.
Correct?
Oh yeah.
So, were you involved in sports when you were growing up?
Of course. It's Texas. If you weren't involved in a sport, like, I don't know if you made it too far. To be honest, like football, you know, I was involved with cheerleading, soccer, softball, tennis. If you name it, I probably did it.
What got you hooked into pro wrestling?
Two different things actually. Like the very first thing, my grandfather was super into professional wrestling, and back then it was religion and wrestling. They went hand in hand. But my first experiences with wrestling was basically you either do chores or you watch wrestling. So very obviously as a kid, I'm gonna go watch some TV over here. I didn't think I really understood what was going on other than like, why are these men fighting? And yeah, but I remember seeing like Hogan and Andre and stuff like that. But later on in life, like when I started getting older and stopped going to see my grandparents as much, I actually drifted away from wrestling because it wasn't like a requirement to get out of chores. I ended up being bullied really bad in middle school. And I remember the only person that stuck up for me was a girl named Amy Rodriguez. And she was really, really, really passionate about wrestling. And she kind of reintroduced me into like the post-Attitude Era. And I remember just falling in love with it because it was a whole bunch of women and men that stood up for what they believed in. You know, they were strong, they were powerful, and that was something at that time that I wasn't. And ultimately, I fell in love with it. Like, I had role models like Rey Mysterio, you know, Victoria, Ivory, Trish, Lita, you know, The Rock, Stone Cold, Kurt Angle. I could go on and on. Too Cool. You know, there were so many fantastic personalities and characters that I could relate to on so many different levels. And that's ultimately where I was like, man, I really want to do this. I want to become someone that stands up for what they believe in.
For you then, it became also an outlet or a release to combat what you had been going through. So not only was it something you loved, but it was also something to help you deal with life even.
Yeah, like, I mean, I remember like every Monday and Thursday, this will show my age, popping in the VHS, just trying to set the VCR for the right timer, and always, you know, it was hit or miss if you got it that day or not because you couldn't have it on repeat. But that was the thing that I love to do, and I had soccer practice on Mondays and Thursdays, so I'd come home as soon as I get off soccer practice, and if I missed the first part, I'd rewind the VHS and go back and play that. But it became almost, you know, it was a release for me. It made me happy. You know, I feared going to school every day, but I could come home and watch wrestling, and that just put a smile on my face, and I can't express to you how much, like, I feel like it saved who I was as a person.
WWE does a lot with Be a Star, which is their anti-bullying campaign. And do you feel like, too, having this outlet for you, because so many people see WWE Network and everything, that this is something you could also help kids with? Oh yeah, I was fortunate enough to be able to volunteer to do a Be a Star rally, I think a couple weeks ago. Was that the YMCA? Yeah. Maybe up in Orlando? Right? Boys and Girls Club. Thank you. Boys and Girls Club in Orlando. And I was so fortunate to be able to talk to these kids who, some of them had been dealing with these issues, and we gave them like a positive message and a way to combat what they're going through every day, to the point where they don't have to go, you know, to school in fear like I do. They have friends and teachers and parents, and it's awesome that they receive the message so eagerly almost. And a lot of them knew already, which is even better in my opinion. I feel like bullying was such a hardcore thing when I was a kid that
there wasn't really a lot of information to stop it, if that makes sense. And Be a Star definitely offers that and gives the kids the information that they need to stop it in the tracks and be leaders and be warriors for that matter.
All right, let's go to college.
All right.
You go to college.
Oh yeah.
You got your degree,
Got my
which
degree.
is awesome. So tell us where you went to college. Where did you get your degree in?
Well, I went to college for 6 years, I believe, and I started off at Eastfield College, which is a small college in Mesquite, Texas. I ended up playing college soccer there for a year.
Scholarship?
No, I wish. But
you still played, though.
Yeah, I still played NCAA soccer for a year. At that time, I switched my major every other year. Gosh, maybe more than 6 months at a time. Less than that, actually, sorry. But I started off in veterinary, then I went to kinesiology, then I went to athletic training, then I went to accounting. I was just trying to find something that fit for me. And then I actually ended up going into sports medicine for a bit. And I actually kind of fell in love with that. I got my associates at Eastfield, and then later on I moved to University of Texas at Arlington. And by this point in time, I was full-fledged into wrestling. So
You were looking to get your pro wrestling degree then.
well, pretty much. Like, I figured I could balance it, and it was balancing out. I'd go on the weekends here, study while we're driving 6-7 hours to whatever show we're at that time. But when I got to away from home, might I say, which was about 45 minutes away from where I lived, I basically figured out that I didn't want to go to school anymore. I'd always been like a straight A student, you know, because that was the thing to do, get an education. That's very much so a thing in Texas. If you don't play sports, you gotta get an education, you gotta get a job, and move out of my house. So that was pretty much how my parents were. And when I got out of the house, I kind of figured out what I wanted to do in life. I wanted to become a professional wrestler. And it was trying to figure out what steps I needed to take to get there. I was still going to school. I wasn't so much making the straight A's anymore when I went to UTA, but I was still really passionate about sports medicine. That was the only class that I passed. That was probably the only class I went to every day, too. So, but that's when I started traveling, and that's when I got to meet Booker T, and I met Lance Hoyt, Vance Archer, former WWE Superstar Vance Archer, and I started traveling, and then I met Rodney Mack and Jazz, and then I went up to OVW, had a match, and then that's when I started traveling a lot more, and then, well, do you know, and I'm going for Shimmer Women Athletes, and all around the world, for that matter, and it felt right. It felt so right just to do that, and it was so much fun, and it was something that wasn't so much new by that point in time. I think I'd been doing it for 4 years by that point, but it felt more natural to me to do this than to go to school. And ultimately, I made the decision to stop going to school. And
But you had your associate's degree.
I did.
Still.
Yeah.
So you did that. And then now it was more going to advanced wrestling school. So to speak, is what you
Pretty
were
much.
doing.